Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we are unpacking a theory that completely dismantles the most famous power dynamic in galactic history. We're talking about a cosmic psychological thriller that literally flips everything we thought we knew about the galaxy's darkest rulers. If you thought you had a handle on the grand design of the Sith, well, prepare to have that perspective entirely shattered. Because in this explainer, we're digging deep into everything about Darth Plagueis, his hidden underlings, and his ultimate galaxy-spanning schemes. Okay, let's dive into this. For decades, the official narrative has painted Chief Palpatine as the ultimate mastermind, right? The grand puppeteer who played the Jedi, the Senate, and the entire galaxy like a meticulously tuned instrument. But think about this for a second. What if Palpatine's greatest weakness, his absolute blinding arrogance, was actually being weaponized against him? What if instead of being the master pulling the strings, he was simply dancing on strings held by someone else, completely blind to the true hierarchy? The contrast between these two ideas is just staggering. On one side, you have the accepted historical lore, Palpatine, the unrivaled genius who supposedly outsmarted his own master. But on the other side, we have the segue theory, which suggests Palpatine was nothing more than a manipulated pawn, basically a frontman CEO. So while Palpatine spent his entire existence boasting about his supreme intellect, this theory posits that he was actively being managed the whole time by a much larger, completely hidden shadow architecture.
That brings us to part one, Plagueis, the true architect.
To really understand this, we need to completely reevaluate Darth Plagueis. He wasn't some tragic victim murdered in his sleep by a cunning apprentice. No, he was the actual mastermind pulling a massive, almost unthinkable long con against his own student. The foundation of this scheme is known as Plan Order Zero, or Order Pilot, and the setting wasn't Coruscant. It was the dark side nexus of Exegol. Here is where the lore takes a massive turn. Plagueis lured a 19-year-old Jedi Knight named Palpatine out to this dark world. He intentionally pushed the young Jedi into a blinding, murderous rage, actively baiting Palpatine to strike him down. It wasn't an assassination at all. It was a perfectly laid trap. Let's actually trace the logic of how this played out, step by step. First, Plagueis baits the young Jedi. Second, he induces that blind rage. Third, Palpatine delivers the fatal strike. But here is the absolute genius of step 4. Plagueis doesn't die. He survives by body swapping. And then the final step is the ultimate victory for Plagueis. Palpatine is corrupted from the inside out, completely convinced he's achieved total supremacy, when in reality, he just fell perfectly into Plagueis' design. So where exactly did Plagueis go? Well, the theory drops a massive twist on us here. Plagueis survived by transferring his essence into the body of a moon. But not just any moon. He assumed the identity of the Supreme Chancellor himself. By hiding in plain sight at the absolute top of the political food chain, Plagueis secured total legislative and financial control over the Republic. He was pulling the strings the whole time, while Palpatine just thought he was the one scheming in the shadows. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is part 2, the dual operational pillars. You see, a true mastermind doesn't operate alone. Plagueis built a highly specialized apparatus using 2 incredibly distinct operatives long before the Clone Wars were even a thought. First, serving as the right hand, we have Darth Maul. Maul wasn't just Palpatine's attack dog. He was Plagueis' right hand, the instrument of martial law and kinetic operations dominating the physical battlefield. But then, serving as the left hand, we have Darth Jar Jar. He operated as the mastermind of administrative architecture, intelligence, and ideological purity. These 2 weren't just lackeys. They were direct administrative comrades serving the true emperor, Plagueis. This dual-pillar structure puts historical events into a terrifying new context. Think about the invasion of Naboo. It wasn't just a random political crisis, and it certainly wasn't a mere stepping stone for Palpatine. It was Order 1, a strict, strategic directive straight from Plagueis, executed flawlessly by his dual operatives. It was a calculated, deliberate move to keep Palpatine locked onto his manipulated path of perceived dominance. Which leads us to part 3, Darth Jar Jar's Supreme Sovereign. We have to peel back the final, and honestly most shocking layer of this explainer, the true identity of the left hand. If the idea of Jar Jar Binks as a Sith Lord is surprising, his actual structural power in this shadow architecture will absolutely floor you. He wasn't just an underling. According to the sources, the Sith Order wasn't forged by random ancient warlords. It was legally chartered, conceptualized, and structurally brought into existence on the ancient world of Corbin. And the supreme head chief and administrative governor who drafted these foundational charters? Darth Jar Jar. Literally every structural protocol of the dark side originated directly from his administrative decree. As the supreme sovereign possessing absolute executive power over this nascent empire, Jar Jar made a historic move of political delegation. Get this, speaking in chillingly precise, razor-sharp standard English, with absolutely zero trace of the fabricated vernacular we know today, Jar Jar officially elected and appointed Darth Plagueis as the visible Sith Emperor. Jar Jar willingly stepped back from the public throne, granting Plagueis dominion while retaining the true supreme governance for himself. So the crucial point is, Part 4, The Great Gungan Masquerade. Why on earth would a supreme intellect, a being of absolute power, abandon his throne to become a bumbling, chaotic general wandering the swamps of Naboo? Why trade the absolute heights of the galactic shadow architecture for the life of a despised outcast? Well, the answer lies in something called the Primordial Decree. When Plagueis took Jar Jar on as a youth, this ironclad rule was established. It states, the left-hand man must never accept a new Sith that used to be a Jedi, and must abandon the Sith if necessary when a Jedi became a Sith. So when the corrupted former Jedi, Palpatine, usurped the visible throne following Order Zero on Exegol, Jar Jar was strictly bound by his own foundational law. Rather than wage a massive destructive civil war against Palpatine, Jar Jar executed the ultimate strategic retreat. He enacted a masterful protest. Step 1, he completely discarded his imperial title and robes. Step 2, he erased his razor-sharp standard English vocabulary. And Step 3, he adopted an impenetrable psychological armor of bumbling buffoonery, retreating into the murky swamps of Naboo where absolutely no one would ever suspect his true nature. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer discipline required to pull this off. He completely abandoned his former language, wrapping his massive intellect in deliberate grammatical chaos. Yet, the sources point out two very faint linguistic artifacts that actually survived the transition. The phrases big dodo this time and gooberfish. These are the only remaining echoes of his discarded ancient vocabulary, hiding quietly beneath layers and layers of simulated foolishness. It really leaves us with a truly chilling realization. While Palpatine struts through the halls of the Senate boasting of his unrivaled genius and believing he holds absolute control over the stars, who is truly watching from the mud? If this theory holds, the true founder of the Empire is simply biding his time in the swamps, just waiting for the usurper to fall so the real left hand can reclaim the board. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the narrative.